Welcome to another Toastmasters Unplugged. This is episode 20. We have a wonderful schedule of talks lined up for January 2026. See more about them as the end credits roll tonight. Toastmasters Unplugged allows us to focus on topics and people where we have time to get deep into the space and explore more. If you have questions, pop them in the comments in YouTube and we'll feature them during the live stream tonight. Tonight's guest of honor is Ted Corcoran. Ted is a distinguished Toastmaster and was the first ever European International President of Toastmasters International, 2003 to 2004. The legend that is Ted Corcoran is 40 years in the making within Toastmasters and is a good number of years more in the making outside of Toastmasters. Tonight we talk to Ted about Toastmasters in years gone by and his contribution to the growth of Toastmasters over the decades. Welcome, distinguished Toastmaster and past international president, Ted Corcoran.
Hello, Brian. Good evening to you.
Live from Dublin. We're both live from Baldoyle. If I shouted out my window and your window was open, you'd probably hear me.
I probably would. All the intellectuals in Dublin live out our way, yeah.
I think I'm the closest Toastmaster living to Ted Corcoran. There you go. My facts about me are going to be slim and slender tonight. We're talking all about Ted. How are you this evening?
I'm very well, apart from my walking. Otherwise, I'm working away fine.
Recently, we celebrated your 40th anniversary of joining Toastmasters. You joined in 1985 and you saw an ad in the newspaper, I believe. Correct me if any of this is wrong. And you attended the Hollybrook Hotel for the launch of a new club. Is that correct?
That's exactly what happened. I was serving as the station master at Houston Station in 85. And most of the remaining years of the 80s. And I stopped to say hello to Paddy Donoghue, the security man at the gate by the Liffey. And he said, would you like an evening paper? Because they went out that time by train. So I brought it home and I saw a letter written by somebody I knew, Pierce Barrett, who was active in the football GA world in Dublin. And I had been involved in the GA world. And I read it, and it just said about this new Toastmasters Club starting in the Hollybrook Hotel on the 7th of October. And off I went.
Special date, 7th of October, 1985. And you visit your first meeting in a new club, and you end up being on the committee that evening. And from there, you're working backwards. You're working back from the top down because you become the club president on night one.
Yes, I left Baldoyle to drive into Fairview where the Hollybrook Hotel was. It's now apartments. Saying to myself, I'm not going to get involved. I'm definitely not going to get involved because I'd always been involved in something, whatever it was. And I went to the meeting. They had an ordinary short meeting. Then they had a break. Pierce Barrett, who had written the letter and organised the hotel and the Toastmasters to come to it, he went and put the letter in the paper. He went off to the men's room and he was away for 2 minutes. The worst 2 minutes he ever spent, because by the time he came back, a man had approached me and said, I'm from the Toastmasters, we're forming a committee, will you do president? I said, okay. So I became president the very first night.
This is 1985. If anybody watches Netflix, there's a series called Stranger Things. It's set in like 83, 84, 85. Things were different back then. Some of us are old enough to remember, but there was no internet, no mobile phones, no WhatsApp, no email, no Zoom. How did you communicate to call meetings and everything that you needed to do that we all do now with technology?
Well, word of mouth or by letter. That was all. There was no other choice, really. The meetings were fixed in advance, in our case, every 2 weeks at 8 o'clock. And people turned up and they brought their friends with them. Or they didn't. But we started off as a fairly vibrant club back then and we kept going. Now, we were helped a lot by the Malahide Club members, Dick Hassan particularly, because he took over the Vice President Education's job as a member of Malahide, and he truthfully ran the show for my year as president because I knew nothing at the time. And Rita Fagan would come, and other people from Malahide, Jerry would come as well. So yes, there was a lot of help from Malahide, a lot of help, and I think that's an important feature of starting a new club. Even today, it needs another club to embrace the idea, because there's strength in numbers, and nobody feels I'm doing this alone, or it's too much, or I can't be there. It's a team effort.
If Generation Z or millennials were to be teleported back to 1985, what would strike them as different about a Toastmasters meeting in the Hollybrook Hotel, or Toastmasters typically back then?
I think that would be surprised at how few lady members were Toastmasters at the time. It wasn't the thing to do. I would think also they would be impressed with the formality of the occasion, because back then men wore jackets and ties, and women dressed up for the occasion. But the training was the same, and people spoke and they got evaluations and they moved on.
What would you keep or rekindle of that era that we no longer have?
Well, I think we have it here in Division C, where I live and you live, in that the Malahide Club, the Swords Club, the East Coast Club, we all help each other and turn up at their doors. Glasnevin, for example. We have that sense of community that a club in the middle of Ireland with no neighbours probably miss a lot. And I think about County Kerry, where I come from. There's a club in Killarney and there's a club in Tralee, but they have populations of over 25,000. Listowel made an effort 2 or 3 times, then started a club and died away. Because Toastmasters has always believed that you need a population of 10,000 people to charter a club. But not just to charter it. As people leave, as they do, they're replaced. And if you look at, as I have, the towns of Ireland, there are not many with 10,000 plus that don't have a club at the minute.
You mentioned something in an answer to back about not noticing a lot of women in the club because it wasn't the scene. But women weren't allowed in until, was it 1971?
73.
73.
Yeah. And of course, that was the story about the Dublin Club that was chartered or set up in 1958, chartered in 1959 by Paddy Cunningham. And I met him. I had the pleasure of meeting him once, but never knew the important part he had played in history of Toastmasters in Ireland. And he got into right trouble with the Scottish leaders of the district at the time, because they didn't want women as members. And there was a whole exchange of correspondence and this, that, and the other thing. And Paddy sorted it out, as I said, in the history of Toastmasters that I wrote here. It is Comprehensive History of Toastmasters in Great Britain and Ireland. It's still available from the district, I think, for about €10. But he registered the women as members of the Dublin Club, but never registered them with Toastmasters. And I met an Eileen Murphy, who was introduced to me by one of the past presidents of the Dublin Club, Tom O'Neill. And they lived happily ever after. The women participated until 1973, when that's 15 years later, when they were accepted as full members. And now I reckon there's about 55% of the world population of Toastmasters are women. 55%. The the current international president, Aletta from South Africa, a woman. Last year was Raddy from New York, a woman. The year before, Morag from Scotland living in Germany, a woman. Next year, it'll be a man. The year after, it'll be a Gauri from India. So the women are pulling their weight big time notice.
It is said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So did it take a number of years in that kind of situation where women then didn't en masse join just because the bar had been dropped and they could join? Would it take time for them to kind of assimilate and come in?
Oh, a lot of time. They were in the minority in the boards that I served on. And I served on, let me see, 2 as an international director and 5 as an officer. So they were in the minority each time. And because they were also in the minority of district directors or governors, as they were called back then. So you really you had no chance of being elected an international director if you hadn't served as a district governor. And women had no chances of being elected to those positions in several of the states in America. And of course, as I was saying to somebody the other night, when I went to Las Vegas in 1972, District 71 was the only district in Europe, with 56 clubs. Now there's 10 districts in Europe, and there were only 5 districts at the training from outside America. Now there's 50 districts outside North America. So you can see that everything is changing, is tilting away from America, and women are becoming more dominant and being elected to roles more frequently.
We have a hello from Elizabeth Jordan. So hello back to Elizabeth. Thank you for your messages on these live streams. As we were mentioning women in Toastmasters, we have our first message in from Elizabeth. I asked you about something that you'd rekindle of that older era. Is there anything that you would drop from the current era of Toastmasters? What's your pet dislike that you would banish out of Toastmasters?
It's very hard for me to say because I like Toastmasters. You get the rough with the smooth. There's no doubt whatsoever. But I suppose what I'm particularly interested in is the growth of Toastmasters. And when I served as president in 2003, 2004, the organization exceeded 10,000 clubs and 200,000 members for the very first time in 80 years. And then each year after that, it grew and grew and grew. So by 2019, which was 15 years later, we had almost 17,000 clubs and almost 400,000 members. And then, of course, the pandemic hit and it fell and fell. And the number of clubs and members declines every year since 2019, including last year. And what I am concerned about is when are we going to stop that decline and start to grow again? But has the world changed in the meantime as well? Is there as much interest in learning communication and leadership skills nowadays from Toastmasters, where you can pay €1,000 for a weekend and you learn all you know? Well, of course you don't. You only become aware of what you don't know, but that's a different thing altogether. So yes, I'm concerned about that trend, and hopefully we can arrest it.
I mentioned some technology things earlier, and I kind of raised them not for the reason that they're technological, but what's behind them is the slowness and the speed of Toastmasters. When you're dealing internationally with letters and probably into the 90s fax machines and telex, that's much slower communications. Therefore, communications must be more certain and clear back in those days. And was it certain and clear?
Not really, no. We had area governors. We had no division governors until, let me see. I was one of the first in 1990. So there was a few years after I joined Toastmasters where there were no divisions, and then they were created. But we relied on the training. the club officer training. We relied on area governor visits, etc. And of course, visits from other Toastmasters in our neighbouring clubs, as I just mentioned a few minutes ago. And everybody brings a little bit of knowledge about something to the party, as it were. And we did very well. All the clubs did very well. Malahide is a very successful club. So is Sword. So is East Coast. They're all the neighbours. Yeah.
A question in from Elizabeth. What do you see as the role of technology in helping Toastmasters to grow?
First of all, I need to congratulate Elizabeth on as her district directorship. District achieved Select Distinguished Award, which is hard to get. So congratulations, Elizabeth, and thank you for the effort you put into Toastmasters here and everywhere. The question was about, well, I suppose everybody would answer that with AI. And I can just diverge for a second with a funny story. I was at my consultant's waiting rooms 2 years ago, waiting for an appointment at 11:30, and this young man came out and said, "You can come in. My father has gone in next door. He'll be back in a minute." And I said to him, "And you are?" "I'm his son," he said. I said, "Are you going to college?" "Yeah," he said, "I'm going to Trinity." I said, "What are you studying?" He says, "Physics." I said, "What are you going to do for your big work?" He says, "I've invented a machine that if you speak into it, the typewriter or whatever you have will type it out." I said, "How does that work?" He says, "With AI." "Oh," I said, "do you know there are two types of AI? There's the city version and the country version." "No," he says. "Well," I said, "in the city, AI stands for artificial intelligence. In the country, it stands for artificial insemination." And with that minute, his father came in and we burst out laughing, the whole lot of us. This was a Trinity student doing way up there, and he didn't know there was a difference between the two types. But to get back to your question, I think AI will probably take over completely, which is a pity because it's not you, it's somebody else or something else. And a lot of communication is about your personal gift of communication. How you speak, how you deliver, how you come across. Are you empathetic? Are you with us? I mean, trying to read out a speech that's written by another object is going to be difficult to have any personality attached to it.
I think AI is coming for the cognitive work and jobs, but maybe people can excel by having a space where AI doesn't perform. Do you think that less technology club membership was more people focused?
It's hard for me to think back that far, but there was no PowerPoint presentations. there was, if you had to make a presentation, you did it on a flip chart, and there were some of those. There were no iPads, there was no phones, as you said. So it was very much down to the individual and how he or she managed to get their ideas across. And of course, to get your ideas across, you have to work them out yourself first. It's not talking, you're communicating, hopefully. And I'm very strong on this, that just because you're in public speaking doesn't mean that you are communicating. You're speaking, but are we hearing anything? Make sense of anything? That's communication. So not how much I know about something when I give a speech, is how much you know when I'm finished.
So it's about knowing the audience you're speaking to. I'm going to ask you about the Club Success Program. This is something that wasn't in Toastmasters, and there was a brainwave at some moment in time, and there was a development of probably a pilot program. Tell us about bringing into life the Club Success Program.
Well, it was the Club Excellence Program was the title. Well, I went to Las Vegas in 1992 as the club growth director. I'd just been the division director for over here in Dublin the previous year. No, I hadn't. I'd been the public relations officer. we had 56 clubs, and I went off to Vegas with Brian O'Connor, who was then a member of the Bishopstown Club, and Norman Fox, who was in Maidenhead near London. He was the equivalent of the program quality director nowadays. And I went to the training for 2 days with these other 5 districts from outside North America. We were trained on the Monday and Tuesday of convention week. All the Americans and Canadians were trained back in June before they ever took over their roles. That was all changed 15 years ago now, but that's another big story. And I got the impression, because this is my first time at district level training, the impression was all about pressurizing the clubs to do things that would make the district a success. And my famous story, which I told 1,000 times, is I was living or staying across the road in the Dunes Hotel. It was such a well-known hotel and such an expensive hotel that they knocked it down and made a lake of it in front of Bellagio. I was staying there because it was a cheapy place, and Bally's, where the convention was just across the road. So I'm waiting to cross the street, the strip. No bridge then, just with pedestrian lights. I'm waiting for the pedestrian light to turn green. And this idea came into my head. I said, but if we could get the clubs to want to do what we want them to do because they wanted to do it, and we helped them get it done, then everything they did get done would get onto our bottom line as the district and straight away. So I went over, I collected Brian and Norman, and we went back to my room, and we created the Club Excellence Plan in about an hour. It had 3 goals. It had a big one like President's Distinguished, a middle one like Select, and a smaller one like Distinguished. And we called them Gold, Silver, and Bronze. We introduced it in November at the conference in London, I think it was. It was accepted by the business meeting. And by the 30th of June, 1993, 8 months later, we were number 6 in the world. 6th, out of nowhere. Because in the previous 20 years, we'd been distinguished 3 times. And you mentioned Harry Knox before, and he was one of those district governors. So the following year, we were 20th. I was due to become the district governor in July 94, and I got a letter from Pat Sexton down in Mallow from the Speakeasy Club, a well-known Toastmaster still. He said, I love the new program, he said, but there's nothing in it to reward a club that starts a new club. I said, he's right. He's right. So we had gold, silver, and bronze, and I said, for any club that starts a new club, they will get gold elite or silver elite or bronze elite. I introduced it in July 1994. We had 67 clubs, and by the 30th of June 1995, we had 82 clubs. There were 16 new clubs built, and unfortunately, Tipperary closed down one of the older ones. In the following, from 1972 to 92, we were distinguished 3 times. From 93 to 2014, when the district split, which was 21 years, we were distinguished, or better, 18 times. 5 presidents, 12 select, 5 distinguished. What happened? What miracle was this? So I got elected to the board on the strength of the performance of my district in 96 in St. Louis, Missouri. And in 97, when Len Jury from New Zealand was the international president, I wrote him a letter and I set out what we had done, how it had worked, and here are the results. And he put it on the agenda for the board meeting in February 1998. And it was agreed that we would have a new program. It was called the Distinguished Club Program. They didn't use my name. And that's the Distinguished Club Program you have today. But the principle of it still works. You've got to get bottom-up desire to do things. You're not going to get volunteers to do things because people are ordering them to do it or pressing down on them or criticizing them. The desire has to be created from the bottom up. And I've kind of phrase that I've used quite a lot. Better bottom up push. Better bottom up purpose than top down push. Have the club's leadership with a clear purpose of success, and it happens, because it's not, as I said, a lot of people, it's not like launching a space shuttle, running a Toastmasters club for 12 months. So that's how the Club Excellence Program was formed in 1992, how it was changed into the Distinguished Club Program in 1998, and it has been around ever since with a few little adjustments here and there.
Just an observation, everyone who knows you will know your love of numbers and statistics to tell stories. And some people may not know Jimmy McGee, but if it wasn't Toastmasters that you had a passion for, and maybe it was football or Gaelic, you'd be the Stato of football, because, and I'm going to guess here, it's because you're passionate. You cling on to these numbers, and it's what they represent, and it's the attachment of passion to their meaning, that these things happened in these decades and they reach these pinnacles and numbers. So it's not numbers for numbers' sake, it's because you're passionate about Toastmasters.
Oh, you're exactly right. When I see the changes in people who spend some time in Toastmasters, and the way they change from being lacking in confidence to being confident, to being more outgoing, to more belief in themselves, more self-belief, it's magic to see it happening. It really is. And as somebody who profited from other people's care and attention when I was a youngster, I'm very happy to be part of a program, an organization, a club that causes that transformation in people with very little effort on my part, except just to be there and to encourage and to help and to explain.
My big observation, I'm just gone 4 years in Toastmasters, is that there's so much more happening outside of your local club that people numerically don't seem to know about. That there's maybe 30% or less of a club are active in things at area, at division, at district, at competitions. So it's like the big expansive world and opportunities of leadership are outside of what happens in your local club. Not to say that there's not those club opportunities and club committee opportunities within your local club, but there's so much happening outside. Is that a kind of a missed opportunity, or has it always been that way?
Oh, I think so. I think so. When I joined back in 1985, I had some work leadership experience, definitely. But each role I took, of course, I had to work my way down for a while. And there's another good story in that, if I may take time to tell it. Yeah. I was the first president elected in 1985, and I served all of 1986 because the roles were from the 1st of July to 30th of June for presidents, but they were from January to December. They were changed to the 1st of July. So nobody would enter the humorous speech contest in Fingal. So I said, well, I'm the president. I have to take responsibility. So I entered. I got to the Irish final in Kilkenny and I didn't place. The next year I was vice president education. Nobody would enter. I entered a new speech. I got to the final in Blarney in Cork and didn't place. The third year, I'm now the vice president of membership. I construct a third speech. I now win the club contest, the area contest, and I go to High Wycombe? I think it was near London for the conference, and I win the district humorous speech contest in 1988. And the following morning, I'm in the lobby of the hotel, and this tall gentleman approaches me across the lobby. He says, "Hello, I'm Joe Prendergast. I go to be the district governor next year. What role do you hold in your club?" I said, "Vice President membership." "Oh," he says, "that's a terrible pity. If you had been president or vice president education, I'd ask you to be the area governor." "Oh, but," I said, "Mr. Prendergast, I have been. I'm working my way down." So I became the area governor. I became the division governor. I became the PRO. Every opportunity, I took it. And I have come up with a little trifecta of advice for people. And number one is always say yes to opportunity. You don't know where it's going to lead you. It led me to being the international president. Number two, never be afraid to ask for help and advice. There are always many people willing to give it. And thirdly, and I certainly believe this so much because I sat in my first board meeting in February 1997 in Anaheim in California, 23 people around this big long table. And I was the only person representing the rest of the world. All the others were from North America. And I said to myself, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? And then I realized I had ideas and I had opinions and I could articulate them the same as the others. So my third point of advice for everyone is always, always believe you're as good as the next person. Don't put yourself down. Every one of us can do it.
That's nobody's better than me, and I'm better than nobody. That kind of equilibrium.
Yes.
Can I ask you some quick fire questions?
Mm-hmm.
And I know you've given us 3 good mantras there, but the first one is a top tip for new Toastmasters.
Get involved. Take on roles. You learn by doing. Sometimes you do well and you learn, oh, that works. Sometimes you learn by not doing well and you say, oh, I better try something else. That's learning on the job. Nobody goes to a Toastmasters club and comes out after a year a perfect Toastmaster. In fact, none of us have ever come out after 40 years a perfect Toastmaster because we're always learning something, some little change.
Back in October, I was on the tour that went around Ireland, the bus. And the quintessential story I was hearing in many places was that first meeting and hiding behind the pillar at the back of the room. And you're saying, put your hand up, nominate yourself to do a topic, do a speech, do an icebreaker, get in, start early.
Well, I would start with doing a topic and maybe doing a timer or doing something small so that you get used to the family of Toastmasters. It takes a while for people to get the courage to do a speech, but they grow into it. In the proper club with the proper sort of tuition, the proper support, the proper everything, they'll do it, yeah.
Still in quickfire, writing a speech in 10 minutes, is it really possible?
Yes, it is. It is, because I've given it out to thousands of people and they all like it and use it. And in fact, at my meeting the other night, all the 3 speakers used it. And it's very simple, really. You decide what it is you want to speak about, because if you haven't decided what it is, we won't certainly know when you're finished. Then you got to decide your purpose, which is it to inform, to persuade, to motivate, to inspire? You persuade up here, you inspire down here. Then you choose 3 things to illustrate that. In a 5 to 7 minute speech, you haven't any more time. Then you fill in and you get a good opening, catch attention, and at the end you refer back and it's done. It is so simple and it works. And I see people giving speeches in another organization I'm in, and they're from the pillars of society, and they talk for 20 minutes, and we're as wise at the end as when they started, because they're talking over our heads in great detail about something we know nothing about. So you mentioned a few minutes ago about know your audience, such an important thing. And I use an example when I'm talking to people. I said, if I was a neurosurgeon, And I was asked to give a lecture to other neurosurgeons at their annual conference. And the following week, I was asked to give a tutorial to first-year medical students. I couldn't use the same speech because what would be acceptable to the other neurosurgeons would be totally over the heads of the new people. And this is what I see all the time at public events, that the knowledge is over the heads of the ordinary participant, attendee.
If you were to flip that, if there appeared a giant hole in the road in O'Connell Street, Dublin, and 10 doctors turned up and were asked how would they solve fixing the hole in the road, they would apply a doctor's medical approach to the hole in the road. And if 10 turf accountants came along, they would apply through what they know how to fix this hole in the road. So I think it goes with the territory, and using the turf accountants term, horses for courses. You've got to be speaking the parlance and the lingo of the audience you're in front of.
Correct. And that is something that I find ignored the vast amount of time. In this organization that I'm in, and I won't mention it, we have speakers 30 times a year. Not one of them gives a speech that makes sense to us, the attendees. It's way over our heads. Oh, they're confident and they have it all, but it's not for us. They're speaking, but they're not communicating.
Is the standard of public speaking rising or falling? And I'm thinking of politicians, leaders, newscasters, the media, where we see people speaking in public. Is it on the rise or is it on the fall?
The opportunity to speak in public is on the rise, of course, compared to when I started 40 years ago. But public speaking is not communicating. Public speaking is talking, speaking. Are you getting what you have in your head across to the people who are listening to you? That's what judges a good speech from a not a good speech. They're talking. That's what happens. They know a lot about what they're saying, but it's not aimed at the ordinary person who knows very little about it. And you see some people on television and they actually I give you 3 reasons, and that's good. They give reason 1, reason 2, reason 3, or I make 3 points about it. That structures the information into 3 different pieces. Because I talk to a lot of people I ask them the question, why are chapters in books? Why do books have chapters? And the reason is you couldn't read it really without chapters. It tells your brain tells your eyes, or your eyes tell your brain that we're moving from chapter 1 to chapter 2. There's a change in the information. So your eyes tell your brain to make sense of it. In a speech, your eyes don't work, your ears work as a member of the audience. So your ears have to tell your brain, oh, this is this bit, this is this bit, this is this bit. Oh, there's a change here. So you can follow the flow and you can follow the information in that because it is put in a little packet for you.
I suppose just expanding on that, all politicians speak, and you're saying it's about is the message that they're delivering being received on the audience side. To use 2 politicians by name on 2 ends of the political spectrum, Nigel Farage of Reform in the UK, and on the other end of the spectrum, Joe Higgins of the Socialist Party in Ireland from Lispoel in County Kerry. 2 great orators, but also people who can bring audiences with them.
Well, I can't remember ever hearing a speech by Joe Higgins, and I certainly never listened to Nigel Farage. I see some pieces on the news, but I haven't heard a speech. But he's somebody who believes in what he's doing and how he thinks society should be, and that's his right to do that. And Joe Higgins, I can't remember him ever giving a speech. It must be a long time ago.
The world knows Toastmasters for speechcraft. Is there need for the world to know us for leadership development too?
Yes, and it's something that causes people a problem. And as you know, there's been a lot of fuss over pathways, and the competent communicator was a better deal. And but the competent communicator was about crafting your speech. It had, as you know, the first one was about yourself. Then you had structure. Then you had general purpose. Then you had vocal variety. No, you had word usage, body language, vocal variety, research, and two more at the end: persuade and inspire, which were what you need in a speech. That teaches you the rudiments. Now, Pathways today has all that in level 1 somewhere. But when you go on to level 2 and level 3 and level 4 and level 5, you're now speaking about a subject that is educational in itself. So the very fact that you have to read the subject and think about it and take it from the written page and put it into a speech means you know a lot more about that subject when you're finished if you do it properly. And a lot of that is about leadership and working with people, etc., etc., etc. Leadership is not just about being the top person and command here and command there. There's a lot of nuances to it. And a lot of those nuances are in Pathways. And you have to write a speech about them. Then you are learning those nuances, hopefully. I described it as being a driver of a bus. You've got to get the people on board, and because you know where you're going and you have persuaded them to go with you, and then you've got to keep them on board as you're going towards your destination, because unless you mind them, they get off. But that's a very simple explanation, but there's a whole lot of nuance to leadership.
We have another question in from Elizabeth Jordan, and it's: recognition rocks is one of your favorite sayings. Share ways in which clubs make this a reality.
It's completely beyond me why volunteer groups like Toastmasters clubs, areas, divisions, and districts do not see the value in recognizing achievement. People don't get paid. They don't get honors as they do over in England. Why would they do things if nobody ever pays the slightest bit of attention? And I told these two stories the other night, and I'll tell you them. I won't identify anybody from them, but I was at a division training some years ago. I was asked to give a few words on leadership. It started at 9:30. It was due to end at 1:30. I was on at 1:15. Now, the division had 18 clubs. 12 of them had achieved President's Distinguished, 3 Select, 1 Distinguished, 1 was newly chartered, and 1 had some internal problems. So you can imagine from 9:30 to 1:15, 3 hours and 3/4, we talked about nothing else. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. It was never mentioned once in 3 hours and 3/4 about that incredible result. There was zero recognition. Everybody looked forward. Nobody looked back and said, oh, well, what a fantastic year. 12 President's Distinguished clubs, 3 Select. Oh my God, we should have champagne. Why would the ordinary member of those clubs then think that being President Distinguished or any distinguished is important? They wouldn't. So my second story is also about a division. Again, I was asked to do something on leadership. So I made up 3 slides. 1 slide was for President's clubs, 1 for Select, 1 was for Distinguished. I read out the names on the President's slide, and then I said, I'd like everyone here from those clubs to stand up and be recognized. So they stood up and I thanked them. I said, what an incredible result. You did fantastic work. Really looked after your membership. Well done. Please remain standing. Then I did the same for the select. I did the same for the distinguished. And then I talked about them as a group, that they had done what they were asked to do. But it's not the doing, it's the results that happened for the people who were partaking in it, the leaders who were learning how to lead, the people who were speaking, etc., etc. And then I turned to the people who were still sitting down, quite a number. And I said, you're terrible. No. I did not know. No. I said, we all want you to be standing up next year. And we're all here to help you to stand up. And that was the end of that. And then they all went off into breakout rooms. And then a lady who was sitting right in front of me when I was giving this speech, she was chosen to give the report on her return about what happened in the breakout room, which she did. And then she said, one more thing. I want to tell you, we will not be sitting down next year. Did she get the message?
Yes.
And now I want to tell you a funny story about my sing-along, which I'm kind of famous for at convention. And this year in Philadelphia, a guy gave me, they write their names and their districts and the name of the song. And they hand it up to my assistant, and then I get them. And actually, I had 120 singers at the convention because I kept the pieces of paper. But I got this song by Linda Rodstead. So I said to the group, and there was about 100 people at the sing-along every night except the last night. I said, this song I'm dedicating to the clubs that didn't achieve distinguished this year. It's Linda Rodstead's famous song, You're No Good. It brought the house down. It brought the house down. So he sang the song, and the chorus was, You're no good, you're no good, you're no good. So in a very gentle but informative way, I brought to people's attention that, you need to be distinguished. But look, we're hopeless at recognition. Absolutely hopeless. Hopeless.
And I know your black humor and you just demonstrated it, but are there signs that we're getting better?
I'm having an effect, I think, worldwide. All right. Yes, I am because I never stop. And I pointed out to our current leadership here in Ireland, or in District 71, that there's been a newsletter in July, August, September, October. And there's been a word about the Distinguished Club results for last year. Yes. Can you imagine? 4 months and hasn't been mentioned. Why would the person who has just joined our club or your club think that being distinguished is an important thing? See, distinguished measures how well the clubs deliver what TI promises in their communication and leadership training, plus how to run the club. And if it's not done properly, new members won't stay too long.
And recognition of the smallest to the biggest.
Yes, and so there's no problem in getting these. So let me tell you another little story. I managed to persuade Toastmasters International to send out a congratulatory email every August when the results were finalized, and they started doing that back in 2022. Yeah, let's say 2022. So every club president of a distinguished club in the world got an email and congratulating the club on its performance.
I got a letter from America in late October with a ribbon in it as a past president for last year, recognizing the distinguished club status. Yeah.
Yes. And you hung it up in the garage, have you?
It goes onto the banner for the. We're just waiting on more safety pins.
Yes, but this email comes. It should be read out to the club, because it's a congratulatory email for this performance of the previous year. I've done some research. I would say less than 10% of the times is it read out at a club meeting. And that applies from past international presidents' clubs all the way down, because I've asked them, because I know the club is distinguished. Has this, oh, I don't remember that. Why are we so slow to recognize, to honor, to appreciate what is being done? Because, what did I say? Without awareness, nothing changes. And if people join your club, my club, and they don't know about the Distinguished Club Program, and they don't know how well we do in it, why would they be happy to be part of a team that, well, there's no win? People like winning.
Winning for us tonight in the green room and handling all the technology is Olga, and our thanks to Olga. We have a couple of more questions and we will be finished before the hour. What do you most look forward to in 2026 for Toastmasters?
Well, I think that my logo of recognition rocks is gaining momentum. I think so. I look forward to it being more developed, and I hear it more often, and that I see people celebrating success, and that we will never have again the incident that I had with that division I told you about. And by the way, it wasn't that people did it out of badness or anything. It just never occurred to them. I look forward to recognition getting the attention it deserves, because, as I said long ago in this interview, better bottom-up purpose than top-down push. And I look at some of the clubs that I belong to, and I see that bottom-up purpose, want to be distinguished. And of course, to be distinguished, a whole lot of people have to do a lot of things that actually teaches them about leadership and communication. So it's not a boast from the top. It's a boast of all the people who have contributed to this success. And that's how it should work. But when you count up, as I did, that 7,520 clubs worldwide did not achieve distinguished status last year. 7,520 of them. What were they doing for 12 months? What were they doing for 12 months?
When I asked you what you look forward to in 2026, I was certain you were going to say Tralee, Kerry.
No, I'm coming to that. This is the international one.
Okay.
I come to the district one now, which is our annual conference will be held in Tralee, County Kerry, on the first weekend in May next year. And I'm looking forward very much to attending, because even though I don't like Tralee because I come from Killarney. No, that's a lie. No, Tralee is a fine town, a fine club.
As we flash up James Finnegan on the screen saying, "Well done, Olga." James.
No, it's going to be a smash hit. It really is. It's a great place to be. Wonderful, wonderful surrounding places, and Killarney will support it as much as it can, and I'd certainly hope to be there. Now, for our district, I wanted to be distinguished again. I really do, because that's a sign of success. It's not just a medal. It's what we need to do to grow our district and grow our organization. And for finally then moving back to the organization, I hope it stops the decrease in numbers and starts to increase again. And that's up to every one of us. Every one of us. Because go on.
I have another question a late question in from Elizabeth, and it is, what is the title of your next book?
Well, I haven't decided to write another book. I barely covered my expenses in the ones that I did write.
Well, but, in a fantasy world, what would it be?
Recognition rocks.
Okay. In big bold letters on the front.
Yes.
Is there any questions I haven't asked you this evening that you would like to air now an answer to?
I don't think so. You've been very broad ranging in your questions, etc., etc. And you're somebody who is serving in a division director role, is it?
I'm in Division C,
Yes.
and yeah, sometimes I forget I am, but I am. Yes.
Yes, you are. So you are. You see, you have a perspective that obviously was obvious in the questions you asked me. So yes, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we'll get over the lethargy of post-COVID and that we start growing again. But to do that, we need to have people excited. And here's the thing I'm very excited about, that the number of younger people now joining my clubs who 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 see the value of being better communicators and leaders. The old days when the youngest person was sort of 40 years of age is no longer the case. Now the exception is the 40-year-old, as it were. It's younger people.
I did a club visit as an area director to IE Temple Bar 2 weeks ago, and I was struck by the number of young people and the United Nations of people that have come into our country and are attending our Toastmasters clubs. It's a rich, diverse pool of talent that I saw in the room.
Indeed, I was at a club last night, and of the 20 people that were there, probably 10 of them were not of Irish nationality. And it's great to see. Great to see. And they're very enthusiastic. So they are. Yeah. So my book, the books, books. If I write one, it'll be Recognition Rocks. But I don't think I will, because, I've written The Leadership Bus and Hiring a Car and Walking After It about my grandmother, and that's enough. I think I've drained myself.
We've one more question in. Just before that, we have a shameless plug from James Finnegan. Everyone is welcome to the Rose Conference, 8th to the 10th of May at the Rose Hotel Tralee, the Rose Conference 2026.com. If you're interested.
Can I tell James not to worry? Yeah. I'm not entering the Rose of Tralee contest, but I will be at the Rose Toastmasters Conference. All right.
The Rose Conference 2026.com. Bookmark that in your best browser. Last question from Kojo. What is the best advice a fellow Toastmaster has given you?
Well, there's been many tips, I'm sure, but I can't pick out one. If it was learning from sort of I picked up as I went along, was always aim for the next goal. Never stay steady. There's something else in front. Go for it. And in so doing, you will succeed in life, and you will succeed in Toastmasters. At work, I started off as a plain clerical officer, finished school at 18, and I still, at the end, 10 years as the head of safety for the whole country. So I took step. Always took it on the next step. Always believed I was as good as everybody else.
From the permanent way to the permanent fixture in our Toastmasters life. You see what I did there?
That's lovely. Yes, that's very good.
Distinguished Toastmaster and past international president, Ted Corcoran, thank you very much for your time tonight, for your gracious answers and your insights into the past 4 decades and beyond in Toastmasters.
And thank you. And last thing, Kerry for the All-Ireland 2026.
Oh, I think Mayo has got a stake there too. Not that I'm shouting for anyone in particular. Thank you very much for your time tonight. That has been another Toastmasters Unplugged, episode 20. And if you want to watch episode 21, stay tuned for another couple of moments because we have got information about January 26th, that what's coming up. Thanks to Olga in the green room for managing all the technology, to our questioners and the information that's come in online. Thanks to James and to Kojo and to Elizabeth and to everyone else who's not watching it on the live stream but is going to watch it on demand, which is a popular thing to do nowadays. Do enjoy and look up the future talks here on Toastmasters Unplugged in January. From myself, Brian Green, and from Ted, goodbye from Baldoyle. Good night and take care. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Recognition, Rob.